A very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, good morning. That's the right response. Guten Morgen, whatever language you need to say this in. I hope you all enjoyed the conference yesterday, and particularly the gala dinner last night, although I suspect the real measure of those who enjoyed it most might be the empty chairs that are next to some of you, and those of you who've made it through and joined us this morning. We appreciate that. But I think it was a great day yesterday. We had a lot of great, interesting speakers, discussions, and that buzz carried through really throughout the whole dinner as well, and it was a beautiful setting. So I'm glad you could all join us there, and I'm particularly glad to see you all here, smiling bright and early, back for our second and final day of the conference. The Connected Age is the name of this session. It obviously addressing themes that we have kind of been talking about throughout the conference, and no doubt we'll later on in some of the other sessions as well. I have a figure of 20 billion connected devices this year. I think it's IHS market. That's going to grow to something like 50 billion just in the next few years. Probably depending on how you count it, you can come up with different ones. But clearly, the world and society around us is changing, and the automotive industry is probably seeing the most rapid transformation since the combustion engine itself was invented. I don't think there's a CEO who doesn't talk about becoming a mobility provider, whatever that means, and obviously, changing the way that the industry is structured. We see that happening already, and the impact it's having on the supply chain, if not being felt yet, is going to be felt. It's substantial, and that's some of the things we're going to get a chance to talk about today with our speakers. Before I introduce them, though, and before we kind of move into the meat of the session, a couple of kind of small housekeeping notes. First of all, obviously we're all together here in this session, and then we will break apart into streams for the next session after this. We'll have finished vehicles in this room, and we'll be talking about service parts in the smaller room across the way. And then later in this afternoon, part of the reason you're now in different shaped tables and round tables is because we're going to have think tanks. So the think tanks will be posted. You get a chance to join in on some more individual discussions, sort of offline, so to speak, and we'll come together and just talk to them more. So that's a little bit the format as we move through the day. We've kind of been bugging you and reminding you about our Automotive Logistics Live, which is, first of all, that we stream the conference in this room to a global audience. Frank actually was just asking me how many people view it, and we do. We actually have a reasonable audience. At any one time, it might be 100 people watching from outside the room, and then over the course of several months, hundreds of people go and watch it again. So it's something that we kind of do as an added value, and it does increase our reach. But it also allows us to do some interactive voting. We've asked you several times to log on already to vote on some sessions. This session at the end, we'll do some polling on trends and thoughts around the sector. And to get you a little bit warmed up for that, we hope to kind of get you logged in now so that you'll be ready to answer. And we'll put the first polling question up to give you a chance to log in. So a quick reminder, I know we went through it yesterday. On the screen, you see how you can get to the live. There's a bit.ly link. You would have also received an email this morning. I mean, mine came at 8:09 or something like that, and that has a link in that email, which you can click on. To log in, you simply put in your email address and your delegate number, which is on your badge, or it was also in that email, and that's how you'll be able to log in. Once you're in, if you're looking at this on a laptop or an iPad, you scroll down below the screen and you'll see the polling questions will appear there. If you're on a phone, then there's a voting tab. So you click on the voting tab, and that's where the questions come up there. Probably best thing is not to click the video screen. Because it is actually me that you'll just see again, and you don't really need to hear me twice. It's not that interesting, I promise. And anyway, so hopefully, the more of you obviously log on, the more interesting the results are. Clearly, we get a little bit of a better sample size and a little bit better sense of what's going on in the sector. So hopefully, you've had a chance to log in. Continue to do that if you haven't. In the meantime, we'll put up the first question. Some of you may be aware that there's an election going on in the UK. So we thought, why not, in the interest of democracy, give this audience a little bit of a chance to have their say as well, at least reflect a little bit on what's going to happen. So tomorrow morning, once the results are in, who do you think will be best placed to form a government and become the next Prime Minister of the UK? And of course, that probably means sitting in the negotiating table over Brexit. So do you think it'll be Theresa May, the current Prime Minister, the Conservative Party? Jeremy Corbyn from the Labour Party? Donald Trump Jr., maybe, we get some different voice in. Some people would argue that Theresa May is already following some of those policies, but or perhaps we get some new voices altogether. Maybe Mr. Louis Yakumi would be well placed to fit the job, or Christopher Ludwig, if you really think he's up for the task as well. So vote on who you think the next Prime Minister of the UK should be. We're not going to display the answers just yet. We'll do that at the end when we do the rest of the questions. We'll leave that up. So if you get a chance, you can sign on anytime during the session and cast your vote and have your say. Okay, so, and I promise some of the other questions will be slightly more serious than that as well. Again, let's go back to the matter at hand. We're coming on to the connected age. Again, digitalization, what does it mean for the automotive industry? What does it mean for the supply chain? Very trendy nowadays to talk about drones or smart glasses or whatever it may be. Those things are a reality, and we're seeing many things of that. But the transformation obviously goes deeper, both for the auto industry, as I referred to, but also for the supply chain. And for this, we're very fortunate to have a panel that represents multiple sides of this equation with some thought leaders in their space on this as well. We're first going to hear from Carlos Lahoz, who has the enviable task of being the first presentation of the day, but he's definitely the right man for the job there. Carlos is Director of Sales and Business Planning and Supply Chain Management for Kia Motors Europe. We'll then hear from Frank Vorath, who's VP of Global Supply Chain for Johnson Controls, important tier supplier, but also a company that has things well beyond auto industry and in the connected space. We're very pleased that Dennis Kohlberg, Head of Research and Innovation Factory Systems at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, will be able to share some perspectives on the research and thought leadership going on there. And not sat on the stage, it's not some sort of optic illusion. Veronica Sundgerath will join us. She's Connected Mobility Executive Consultant for T-Systems. Slight issue with the presentations that's just being sorted out. By the time our other presenters have spoken, she'll join the panel with us as well. So let's move on. I'll give the podium on to Carlos.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here again with all of you. Today we're going to talk about a pretty important topic for automakers in the future, the connected age. Traditionally, customers were buying cars based on the mobility needs. They needed to move from one place to another place. And then they were choosing the car, the vehicle they wanted to buy based on the brand perception, based on the characteristics, the engine, the consumption they wanted to have in the car. And then they buy a car, and what they do, they drive. 5% of the time of our lives we are spent in cars. In many cases, it is a very enjoyable thing. So we go and drive to beautiful places with our family, friends, but in many other occasions, we are sitting down in traffic jams. So didn't it happen to you that in a traffic jam, you know, at a certain point, you know the face of the people next to you in the car? Because you don't do anything over there. You just stare in front or back, or just losing your time about that. So in the connected age, the car, as we know it today, it is over. Will be history. So we will not have our known cars as we know it today. And why is that? Because alongside our home and our office, the car will become a living environment. Our car will become just another device. We will get one more way of connecting to the world inside our cars. And all of that, it is what is about the connected age. Then, so connectivity, if we see the customer, you know, like in the center of everything in terms of on the car buying, Previously, some years ago, we have only a connection between car company and auto company. All the companies, they were pretty well vertically integrated. So we had our research centers, and some of us, we were having, factories to produce steel, and then, to get all the value chain, from the production until we will delivering the car to the customers. Now it comes new devices. Now the customers, they enter into our cars with a certain device in their hands. And that device, they want it connected. They don't want to be disengaged. So car connectivity, it is the seamless connection and integration between the digital world outside the car and inside the car. Because whenever you enter into your car, you don't want to be disconnected anymore. So how is going to be the interaction now? Now it gets much more complicated, because automotive makers, we cannot dream of a vertical integration anymore. In the future, we will have a totally horizontal integration of the value chain, because the car will be one device, but the services that will be provided, the apps and all the things that we can get inside will not come only from manufacturer, will come from other providers. It is like when you buy an iPhone, you buy the device, but then there is 1 billion apps where you can, insert there and do different things, and the providers of those services are the app developers. So that is going to be totally changed into the environment of the manufacturing system. So from customers, technologies, and OEMs, I will give you a very brief idea what we think about. So, well, in terms of use of mobile, you probably have seen a lot of statistics, but they are, they still amaze me when I see them. So, currently, there is more mobile phones than people on the planet. Many people, they have 1, 2, or even 3. But also, what more amazes me is the use that we give them. Typical 20 years old uses her phone to send 2,000 messages per month. How can you send 2,000 messages per month, even if it is WhatsApps? That is an incredibly high amount of time that we dedicate to that. But also, at the same time, they update social network more than 500 times per month. And also, they use, for example, in the US, an average of 4.7 hours in their mobile. They do not watch television anymore. They just use their mobiles. And that is a very important fact, because those people, that 20 years old, when he will buy a car, he just cannot get inside the car without being connected. It's like a drug. He will get nervous and anxious if he cannot be connected inside the car. So there is a huge need from customers to get connected inside the vehicles. So the behavior of all those customers, they are changing. So, this customer behavior is also fueled by the convergence of this social media, the mobile, cloud, big data, but also there is a very, very high growing demand, access to information, and also digitalization. In 2014, it was a research asking customers, what is your preferences to change a brand, having a better connected car in the other side? So how much would you be, keen to change your brand because of a connected car? So 20% of the customers, they say, I would change my brand because if I could have another brand that offers me a better connected car. Today, in 2016, is 41% and growing. So more and more people, will choose the connection inside the car as one key element to choose one vehicle or another one. So in terms of technologies, we basically, in the connected world, we can differentiate between the devices and also the services that we are offering. In terms of devices, there is 2 ways to connect a car to basically the digital world. One of it, one way, it is through your telephone. So basically your mobile phone gets a connection, and today that is a pretty normal thing to do. Almost all manufacturers, all cars that they are now in the market, they offer this kind of connectivity. So through Apple Play or Android Auto, you just connect your car, and then you get in the screen of your car, you have the same functionality that you have in your mobile. But also what manufacturers we are interested, it is in embedded options. It is that the connectivity does not come through the integration with the mobile, but it is inside the car. And that means that we will have to connect that embedded device, with the outside world. And why is that more interesting for us? Because first of all, we know the data that it is generated into the car without relying on the mobile. And second, because we will be able to update, software devices, directly from remote. So right now, in order to update, a navigation map, or if there is a problem on a software and you need to change because of whatever reasons, you need to make a recall campaign. You need to contact every customers, and then they go to the dealerships, and then the dealership, they just get the software update. It costs probably 20 minutes, but it is a cost of $100 to $150 average just because of getting the car, and also the hurdle to the customer that they need to drive the car, leave the car, just to make a software update. So right now we are used in our computers, in our mobile phones, to have automatically updated patches of security, of improvements of software. So manufacturers, we will be able to do that, through the device that we will be implementing into the car. And also, in terms of services, there is a huge amount of potential in the services. So nobody knows, how much is the amount. Consultants, they say that it is trillions of dollars, but you never can trust really a consultant. So, but it is going to be a big amount of value into the services that we're going to provide into the cars. And of course, manufacturers, we want to get our part of it. So will be many other providers, but we want to be part of that service offering to the customer. So what is really, what kind of services we can have into the car in order to meet customer needs? So, well, basically there is items related to safety. So basically, if the car, it is one more device in the Internet of Things, so basically we'll be able to connect with the environment. That means that if you are driving, the car will be able to connect with a traffic light that it is 1 kilometer away, and will tell you that the traffic light is going to turn red. So basically, you know much more in advance that you need to brake. So, or will be connecting with the car in front of you, and the car will communicate to your car immediately when the car is braking. So you don't need to rely on looking at the red flashing, braking light, because the car will be telling the other one, I am going to brake. And in many other things, we'll be able to tell you exactly what is the best routes on traffic. We'll be able to track your GPS location if they steal your car. I mean, basically, previously, when someone stole your car, you were not able to track where is it. Now you will be able to know exactly where your car is, because it will be a GPS. Of course, that probably it has a downside in terms of privacy. And now we manufacturers, we need to ensure that customers that they don't want to be tracked, they can also get a privacy mode, because perhaps you don't, through an application, your wife can know where you are going all the time. No, we don't want that. So basically, you need to have a certain sense of privacy. And manufacturers, we need to ensure that the data is not tracked, is not logged, is not saved. So basically, the data is only connecting in order to give you services, but we don't use it to anything which will imply, breaking the privacy of customers. And also, one of the other things, as I said before, is the savings of the recall campaigns is going to have a big impact for customers. But also, what I said before, in order to enable all of that, for manufacturers, it is very important to have these embedded connections. And these embedded connections for us, will win over the ones that they are basically only mobile machine transfer of information with your car. So in terms of customer experience, basically for the customers, the customer only can win because they will have a better experience inside the car. So basically, not only the enjoyable moment of driving your car, you will be able also to have a certain experience on the connected world inside the car. You will be able to read your messages. You will be able to reply to WhatsApps. You will be able to be connected or give you messages or information that previously you couldn't do it. So the OEMs, we need to be the leaders in these connected worlds because now there is a lot of service providers that will be able to take part of the time of the customer inside the car. So our interest is still that we build a brand perception and a brand image with our customers, just because the services that we offer them into the connected world. So in a survey asking to customers what would be your most interesting services that we could offer you in the connected car. So they said, number one, vehicle theft tracking that we discussed before, but also emergency assistance. When you have an accident now, you know that the emergency call functionality is going to be mandatory from next year from the European Union, so all cars will have to have an emergency call, and that could save a lot of lives. You have an accident, and then you press the red emergency button, and you get connected immediately with the emergency services. Or if you are injured and you cannot push the button, if the airbag is released, automatically the call goes on and asks you, is everything okay in your car, are you okay, etc. But not only that, if you cannot answer because you are really severe injured, so the emergency exits, they can locate your car. So if you are in a non-accessible road and there is no connection, nobody around, and you have an accident, you cannot respond, emergency will know that a certain car in a certain GPS location got an accident and the person inside cannot respond. So they will immediately send an emergency team in order to help the customer. And then also navigation. When we were selling navigation some years ago, customers were amazed that they couldn't update their navigation maps. So basically, how can I buy something and 2 years later the roads are not, updated anymore? So now with these software updates, we will be able to immediately send updates on the maps. That it is a very good advantage for customers. And also breakdown support or maintenance. So basically, previously the main purchase reasons for a customer was safety, fuel efficiency, but also avoid congestion. And connected car will be one a very important and critical device in order to avoid congestion, because they will be able to tell you alternative routes at the same time. So we can say that the era of one product development cycle for everything in the car is over. What does it mean? Manufacturers, we normally take 5 years in order to develop a car, to develop a product. That also, that is impacted also by the huge amount of investment that we have in R&D, but also because of regulations. We need to meet a lot of regulations with our development of new vehicles. But that 5 years is not matching with the connected world, because normally the software updates, they have a life cycle of 18 months. So in 18 months, any software is basically, in a need to have a renewal. So basically, how can you match 5 years of product and 1.5 years of software development? So what happened in this moment of time is that you buy a car 1.5 years ago, and you think it's the last one, and then 1.5 years ago you complain because you don't have certain functionalities that the new car is coming. But then you need to wait 5 years to buy the new car, from that model, that brand again. So basically, you need to wait a long time in order to do it. So at the end, what is going to happen is that exactly the same like devices like Apple or Android, we will be able to have our same own car, but some of the functionalities inside will change as manufacturers will update softwares and improvements, along the side of the life cycle of the vehicle. But what is one of the main challenges that we're going to have? One of them, it is security. If you basically know that the latest hacking experience we have in all companies, and some weeks ago. I mean, security is a very important topic for us. So basically, in order to ensure that hackers cannot access to the car is going to be very, very important. And in order to do that, we also need all these updates. So what is it for ourselves? So we basically manufacturers, we want to get first, our customers happy. So we need to get a certain customer experience right, and that's why we need to develop these connected cars. Second, we need to save money. That's, as we say, with all the recall campaigns, all the savings through that. But also, through the big data and information that is generated, we also want to get new streams of revenue. We want to get more money outside the information that we get from all these cars. So basically, in this connected world, the car will be a data-generating machine. So data will be all the time generated. So locations, routings, transitions from one place to the other. So all of that, the vehicle data will be aggregated also together with the consumer data. And what we have two types of dealing with all this kind of data. One, it is the upstream data, and then it is the other, it is the downstream data. So in terms of the upstream, so all this data generated by movement. So moving your car, already it is an important information for a lot of people. So if you fuel your car always in the same gas station, so a certain entity that gathers that data and knows that you always fuel in the same gas station could sell that to the competitor gas station. So whenever you're going to fuel your car again, they pop up a message and say 20% off if you just move 1 kilometer ago and go to another gas station. So basically, that is information that is valuable. For the customer, it could be good, because basically you could have a saving, because of that. And also, you generate certain added value that needs to be managed. Also, road conditions, driving conditions, so avoiding traffic jams, telling you, go to another route, and also the mileage. We will be able to settle the maintenance of the car, the maintenance services, with much more accuracy. Then also, for example, we will be able to have partnerships. So what we sell before, this is an example from Shell, but you could partner with McDonald's. So basically, in your navigation maps appears all the McDonald's, points in your map, and then you say, well, I don't have to search for a McDonald's. You show it to me that it is 500 meters away. And then in terms of the downstream data, is all the customer insights, all that will allow targeting marketing actions. So everyday life information, what type of applications they are using the car, what is the media usage, the calendar entries, what is the navigation, but also what is your customer profile, where do you go, what do you use, that is a bit scary, it's like the big brother that will be knowing. But today, with Google, we already know that is happening. I mean, the other day I went to a restaurant and Google sent me a message, do you want to rate this restaurant? How do you know I'm in this restaurant? I don't want to rate it. I just, don't want to bother. But today, we are monitored all the time. And then if you don't want to be monitored, you just need to leave your telephone at home, because, just carrying our telephones with a GPS already on, everybody knows where we are. So the thing is that how in the car will be able to track and give added value to all that information. And that was all, I think, on time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Great perspectives there, kind of lays out, obviously, the transitions that we see from particularly the OEM side in terms of the services and the potential. We'll let Veronica join the panel now. Again, thanks for all that information. And I understand why you wouldn't want your wife to see how many McDonald's you're driving to all the time either. I mean, that would be very inconvenient. Next up, I'd like to invite Frank Vora from Johnson Controls.
Yeah, good morning to everyone, and it's also a real pleasure to talk today about really a topic Carlos has spoken also about it, connectivity. I'm going to extend it a little bit around to talk a little bit about smart cities and ecosystems. Because we live in a world where we don't compete as companies anymore, we compete as ecosystems. And we all know the way how we live, the way how we work, the way how we communicate, and the way how we travel has changed. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what that means. Before I start, I'm going to give you a little bit of a perspective on Johnson Controls, on the new Johnson Controls, a lot of changes in our organization. We are a new organization and different to what we have been doing in the past. And I'm going to just start off with a little bit of giving you a perspective on things. Obviously, everyone knows we have been heavily involved in the automotive industry over the last decades, over 30 years. And in the last year, we transformed our organization into a new organization of Johnson Controls with an Adient spin-off, which is a company we spun off and which is heavily involved in the automotive seating part. And at the same time, we merged with a company called Tyco International. That now gave us a complete new company as a new Johnson Controls, 117,000 employees. We are around 130 years. We actually started 132 years ago with our founder who invented the electrical thermostat. So we heavily involved in the building industry for a long, long time. And that's actually where we transformed our organization. And today you see us with two pillars, and the one is really around building technology and solutions. And that is really going with mega trends around smart cities, ecosystems, around connectivity. And the other pillar is our power solution business, which you will know because we supply the automotive industry with car batteries, lead acid, start, stop, et cetera, and also we're moving more into distributed energy storage solution because following also mega trends around the world. You see our leading brands just for your information, who we are today. You see we are organized by industries now as a multi-industrial industry. That's all what I wanted to say about us as an organization, but let's talk a little bit about disruptions and opportunities. So as we all know, everything is going to disruptions currently. Organizations, markets, the political landscape, everything is changing. So we all know it's all around data, it's about artificial intelligence, it's about machine learning, it's about also mega trends around energy, climate change, it's around urbanization, demographics, we all know that. But what is important is that all these factors are playing together and not in isolation. And that creates an environment for every organization as well as for us individually, which gives us opportunities, but also at the same time, we have to overcome challenges. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Carlos touched on security issues. I believe there are certain things we have to be more cognizant about when we talk about security, but I'm going to touch on that as we go along. So let's look into the landscape about the Internet of Things, or I would call it Internet of Everything. You cannot see the different industries in isolation of each other anymore. Carlos touched on that. It is an infrastructure, it's an ecosystem. You have smart cities, you have transportation systems, you have connected products and equipments, you're going to have security. Security becomes, I believe, the topic we will have to tackle in a different way as we did in the past. We also talk a lot about energy and the energy supply, and not only because of sustainability impacts, also because of the fact that we most probably run out of energy at some point of time if we don't think differently about it. Safety, pretty much important these days. After we saw it's crazy out there with the recent events in the UK, becomes an absolutely different topic. And then obviously the different platforms which needs to be connected. So we live in a new business area for global products and ecosystems. That's a fact. But what does that mean? And I believe that we don't have all the answers, but together I think we can figure that out. So I want to give you a real example of what it means. And I especially didn't focus so much on the car, because everyone knows about the car. But let's talk about what if buildings could talk? What if we could give them a voice? And I want to show you an example of what it means.
Every day in this smart building, 2,000 lights are controlled from one central management system, illuminating 170,000 square feet of space. 320 people arrive at 5 access card readers, informing 2 chefs how much food to prepare for the day ahead. 6 smart lifts automatically open, taking staff to their floor securely, saving 11 kilowatt hours of energy. 150 fire extinguishers, 100 smoke detectors, 15 fire panels, and 2 suppression systems protect the building against the threat of smoke and flame. 86 cameras secure the building's traffic and identity management, while 100 control points are accessed 3,200 times. One management platform centralizes it all. 17 meeting rooms are booked and secured through email calendar systems linked to access control. 150 vents manage 21,000 liters of conditioned air per second, heated or cooled as needed by Metasys software. 200 liters of rainfall is collected for reprocessing into the plumbing system. Only 1.1 watts of energy per meter squared escapes through glazing. 2 environmental arrays measure wind speed, sound, light, CO2, and humidity. 2,000 car parking spaces are monitored across 5 car parks, predicting free spaces over the following week. An IoT platform ingests 290 data points per second. 82 live bus routes and 15 train schedules are sent to the cell phones of building occupants as they prepare their journeys home. In 1 Albert Quay, Cork, Ireland's smartest building is powered by Johnson Controls technology and building management systems, accelerating what a smarter, safer, more connected building can do.
So as you can see, it's all around creating a smarter, safer, and sustainable environment. But important is that everything is connected. As you saw in the video, is that the building is actually connected with the outside world, transportation system, parking systems, security systems, social media systems. All those kind of things are becoming a reality. And as you see, it's there. So it's not that we can see things in isolation anymore. And we have the automotive industry working on different things like other industries. Those industries will need to find a new way of collaborating with each other. And that's clear. And that gives opportunities, but also we have to see the risk on that. Everything obviously is somewhere structured around IoT platforms. And obviously the data exchange becomes something we have to figure out in a way of, number one, tackling our legacy issues we all have in different industries, but also making sure that we somewhere exchange the data in a very secure way. As we all know, when everything is connected with each other, it also gives opportunities for hacking. And that could obviously be a real danger. I had a conversation last night with somebody who was talking about hacking in a nuclear power plant. Or can we imagine that, what could happen? Or hacking in the car industry when the cars are driving and autonomous driving has become a reality. But what would be if people were hacking in a complete system when now everything is being connected? Does that mean that we now cannot operate anymore? What does it mean for our comfort? What does it mean for our safety? That's all questions where we need to find the answers very soon, because in the end, the technology is there. But we have to find ways how we now connect these things with each other. So, like I mentioned, we have global urbanization trends driving central planning and connectivity for multiple systems like energy efficiency, transportation, mobility, sustainability, safety, and security. Carlos, you have spoken about 20 billion or something like devices. I think it's going to be soon 50 billion or something like that. The number is out there. What does that mean in terms of data? What does it mean in terms of connectivity? And how do we want to overcome that? So I'm looking at you, maybe T-Systems and the network providers are obviously being heavily involved in collaborations and also creating an environment which is safe for us to actually use the opportunities we all have. We talk about more integrated district infrastructure systems. So it's not anymore like products, devices, and industries. We talk about an ecosystem. And let's look into that. I mean, you have seen in the video, it's about buildings, it's about energy, it's about infrastructure. And I know you can't really see that, and I apologize for the small writing, but I mean, that could be a smart city. And as you can see, you have energy, you have smart housing, buildings, you have electric vehicle car sharing, new mobility transportation systems, you have energy supply. All those kind of things are going to be connected with each other. And is that reality? Yeah, it's going to be a reality. Are we going to see that in our developed markets soon? Maybe not, maybe partially. But when we think about the new markets or emerging markets in China and Asia, cities are working on that right now with organizations to put that into place. And that becomes a reality of our life, which creates opportunities for organizations to collaborate. Another example is obviously security. We have seen that security has a new status in our lives. We all feel from time to time uncomfortable when we're going out there and we don't know what will happen next. But I believe technology will gives us also an opportunity to connect different systems. And we all know that we're living in an age where we can connect that, where we can connect social media with security systems. You have these days cameras which are around the cities and consistently monitoring the infrastructure, but also where you have that now being connected with, like, for example, other systems like social media, and you can exchange data, and that could be an opportunity even for cars. The cameras in the cars are not only to provide information and help for the driver, it's going to provide data, and the data is going to be exchanged, most probably with authorities. Because you have the cars consistently driving around and collecting these kind of data. So things are going to come and going to come fast in a very exponential way. And we all have to be aware about these kind of things. But one important topic is security. So when we talk about security, the way how we look at that in our organization is threefold. Number one, we talk about cyber security or cyber risk. The second aspect is about operational risk and operational security. And the third is around physical risk and physical security. And all these kind of three things are also interplay with each other. So you can't see these things in isolation. And that's, I believe, a challenge where we have to work as an industry or industries together in an ecosystem to provide a more secure environment. So to sum it up, we live in an age of the engagement and ecosystem-driven economy. I spoke about the way how we work, the way how we live, the way how we operate, the way how we work. Everything has changed. That gives us opportunity to drive new experiences for us as consumers, customers, with reliable or fast responses. I'm going to be able to hopefully make better fact-based and smart business decisions. We're going to see new business models popping up in an ecosystem, or company are actually joining forces because they believe that they can operate and be better together as isolated. We're going to see a new drive to lower cost and drive efficiencies, different value propositions, better comfort, hopefully better safety and security, and sustainability, which is very, very important. But there is risk, and we have to talk about the risk. We don't have to just talk about the fancy opportunities we all have. We have to talk about cyber risk, physical risk, and operational risk, and that has to be solved as an ecosystem, and not in isolations and as standalone companies anymore. So thank you very much. I think I'm in time.
Good in time. Thanks, Frank. Thank you. Thank you again, Frank. Another interesting presentation, and I think in a way, the strategy and history of Johnson Controls itself is an interesting example of how the change in the supply chain, certain areas sold off, others brought on, this melding of sectors coming together. We can see examples with others like at Delphi as well doing similar things. So it's interesting to see, and obviously all of these are key issues, not least the security side, and of course having to view this as an ecosystem. I'd next like to invite Dennis Kohlberg from the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning also from my side. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. That's actually the last slide of my presentation. Can somebody maybe jump to the first slide? Otherwise, I will go the way from the end to the front. That looks much nicer. I would like to give you some short insights into the smart factory. We've heard about smart cities. Now we come to the smart factory. I'm from a research institute, but I always have to highlight we are at the cutting edge between research and application. With a smart factory, it's an open network. We started 12 years ago with nowadays 50 industrial partners, the big players in factory automation and IT, like IBM, SAP, Siemens, Bosch, and so on and so forth. We are working on this smart factory approach and thinking how to apply IT developments, what's going on in the IT world, into the factory automation, into production environments. And before I go into some details, let's start and think about what's going on right now. And yesterday we already heard some developments in the market. Up to right now, it was more that the customer was looking for the cheapest product in a very good quality, but he still choose a product from a fixed variety. So me as the producer, I could decide what the customer can buy. In the future, one of the mega trends is customization. So the customer starts thinking about, I don't want to have the product everybody has. I want to have something customized. I want to have my individual mobile phone. I want to have my individual, don't know what. Let's talk about clothes, for example. Adidas is doing a great job right now with the Speed Factory. They are thinking about why buying standard shoes. Why not customizing them online? They are produced, customized, and then I get directly these products. Okay, we had this time. It was mass customization some years ago. But what's new with the Adidas approaches, they are doing it also online, ordering it online, and you can take it up, pick it up next day in the shop. It's produced in the shop, knitted in the shop, printed in the shop. So it's not only about customization, but also in shortest time. Amazon, yesterday the example, within 2 hours delivery. I want to have my individual product in shortest time. Besides, we also have some ongoing developments. Yesterday we also highlighted diesel engines. 3-4 years ago, nobody was thinking about that diesel will ever disappear, is maybe too much, but that big change in the market, and electrification is such a big thing. 10 years ago, nobody was thinking about. So what does it mean, in fact, for the production environments? It means we have new requirements in the production. We need to changeability. We can't predict the future, so we need an approach that we can adapt to the future, although we don't know what the future looks like. And typical in the past, it was IT systems, infrastructures, automation system in production. IT in production was once engineered, applied, long-term usage, something like 30 years for a machine, running for a machine. We had this nice pattern with our engineers together, put it into production, and everything looks nice. And with the time, the changes come. Everything was changing, some new approaches. Some things I picked up. Bring your own device was one big development in the last years, cloud computing. Then I had to extend my production line because something new need to be added, audio systems, whatever was new. And so in the end, a few years later, my IT system didn't look that nice anymore. It looked more like this. So, of course, on the right side, it is hard for me as a producer to get the overview, to stay in touch what's going on with my production. Everything is more or minor. Okay, we need to fix something and go and have a workaround. Yeah, as mentioned, since 12 years, we are working with our partners together on this smart factory approach. And what we figured out, or what our vision is, we need some production environment which autonomously adapts to uncertain requirements. And it's based on 4 paradigms. the one paradigm is modularity. So if I don't know what the future is, and I know I need to exchange things, I need a modular approach. I need to take off parts of my production line and replace it with other parts. Maybe I don't have to shut down the whole production line, but just change single parts to update it. Another paradigm, digitization. Obvious, right now everybody's talking about connecting everything. So if I want autonomously controlled machines, talking machines, smart production lines, they need to talk to each other. And for this I need a connection. One thing which is not that obvious, the smart factory is human-centered. 30 years ago, we started the computer-integrated manufacturing era with the idea we will never need humans in the production anymore. Everything can be done automatically. This approach failed in the end. So what we learned from the past, the human is always needed in there. Let's not think about how to get rid of the human. Let's think about how to support the human. I can't give my employees every day an hour of training to update him what's the new variant or new product looks like, how to assemble it. But I can give him assisting systems that he knows directly when he's working. Okay, this is a new product, but I have my guidance system, I have my information, my real-time information, for example, the CAD model at my working desk to see what do I have to do. And one last thing, the smart factory must be lean from 2 points of view. First of all, lean is a very good approach. I need little investment to reach a lot. And nowadays, nearly all production environments are organized according to lean principles. Second thing, and usually I'm speaking to manufacturers, so that's more interesting for them. I think for you it's obvious. Technology can do a lot, but technology is not always the solution. We've had some cases in pharma industries where we simply figured out, okay, let's stick to the paper because it's the better solution than a tablet in this case. It depends on the use case. So technology doesn't solve everything. Sometimes it's good, but not every time. What we've done in the last years, 2014, when everybody started to talk about Industry 4.0, we presented with our partners the first vendor-independent Industry 4.0 production line. What was special about it? It was on the one hand, we thought about Industry 4.0, and our opinion is, by that time already we had the component. It's not about a new technology itself. Industry 4.0 is a way of thinking, how I start engineering my production lines. And the second part, a lot of companies always told me by that time already, I can do Industry 4.0 already, just by my products. But that's not the idea of Industry 4.0. If you look into IT world, we have a lot of platforms nowadays which can exchange information. They are connected through our APIs, open interfaces, and I can exchange information. And that's what's going on in production right now. I need to open my interfaces for other companies, for other technology providers, to be vendor independent from the consumer side. What we realized in this production line was, on the one hand, of course, modularity, exchangeability. We started with an approach 10 years ago with an approach down to the field device level. See it as a Lego brick. Put together your Lego bricks and build up your production line 10 years ago. Of course, research is also not always winning, but sometimes also failing. And 10 years ago, we noticed that is a little bit too early. It's not yet the time. So we took one step further. We went on the machine level and started to think about how can I put functionalities into single dedicated modules that are exchangeable. And with this approach, I can put together my production lines like with the Lego bricks. Of course, in this example, we are producing business card holders, not cars. It's a little bit smaller and a little bit easy with this approach. But nowadays, this approach we also apply to automotive industries. Another point about changeability in future means if I exchange my modules, there should be little downtime. And we thought, where in IT world did we find something similar? And it was in USB. Why not take the USB approach and apply this to production? Which means, why not give every module one connector, which supplies a module with air pressure, high voltage, network, and safety system, so that you can plug it off, move it somewhere else, maybe to another production line, plug it in again. You have one standard. We worked on one common standard in our network to set up this one machine USB to realize plug and produce. Little downtime, during runtime, you can switch off one module, take it out, put another one in, plug it in, it's running again. Yeah, many people talk about cyber physical systems, but in fact, what does it mean? If I think about Lego bricks down to the field devices, typical field devices are dumb devices. They are connected to a bus system and deliver some information, but in fact, they don't know what they are doing. So let's equip them with tiny computers, tiny computing power. Something very easy to install like this. It's one component which has the size of 2 sugar dices. So really little, which has enough computing power to open and to enable an open interface, open communication, connected with the outside world. Give information and gather information from my environment. And that's in fact our tiniest Lego brick, let's call it like this, what we work with. Yeah, connectivity, connected age is the topic of this session. If we have these tiny Lego bricks which are all smart enough to communicate with each other, I'm coming away from these fixed network, fixed connections that we have nowadays and coming to a dynamic world. Everything is connected. I can put new components in my network which have never been there before, but they can describe themselves in a semantic way. We had yesterday also the discussion about semantics. They all speak a common language. For example, OPC-UA. As one of the main protocols, at least in Europe at the moment. In US, it's more DDS. They speak the same language. They have the same information. So even in the moment I need a connection to one device, I can connect to it and gather the information. It doesn't mean that I always need this connection, but I'm able to get this information. Yeah, and what about the worker in this context? I was more showing approaches for dynamic production environments, but what about the worker? We worked on different approaches, how to support or how to assist the employee in a production line in an assembly task, for example. And of course, we started with smart glasses and all these fancy technologies, augmented reality with tablets before that. And what we learned from that time is, okay, there's a nice technology, but it's not that mature yet. I know there are companies which are using it, especially for logistics, pick-by-light systems. As one example, what we figured out for assembly tasks, it's maybe too much. Maybe the employee, the worker, is not used to wear a glass the whole day. There are glasses which are covering the sides. For safety, it's really the worst what can happen. You can't see what's coming from the right or from the left. So we also went one step back and thought about what's another solution in IT world, what we can apply. And we used projectors. One projector placed on the top of an assembly station, directly showing you in the area where your hands are working, what to do and where to pick. You can replace with this approach, for example, a pick-by-light system. You have a dynamic pick-by-light system. I know there are companies already offering this product. So if we are talking about changing products, it also means changing boxes or changing supply, changing material. And then I always have to change my pick-by-light system. If I take a projector, it can dynamically realign my lights. Another thing is that I can display information about the assembly task itself. You can see it on the top left picture. You can show the CAD model, animate it, give rotations, how to turn the product, show the latest version of the product. If there's an engineering, a change of version, I directly deploy it to the production environment. And with the next order, I have the latest update of my CAD model. That's one example of that technology is nice and you can do a lot, but sometimes you need to take the step back and think about different approaches. And one thing we figured out over the time, and that is quite important, you need to have an idea where you want to go. I've talked to a lot of companies who said, yeah, we are doing digitization, Industry 4.0. We had one use case there, one use case there. We use tablets now in production. That's a nice approach, but you need one idea. Where do you want to go with this approach? Because in the end, if you just install there and here and there, then you come to the complex picture where I don't have an overview of my architecture. I need an idea, what is my communication protocol? If I have smart machines, like we are talking English now today, these smart machines need one language. I need to think about if I have a lot of modules and I want to exchange them. There must be one common interface. On a mechanical level, so how do I forward goods? How do I forward my products? At what point? on a resource level, what's the energy supply, air pressure supply, and of course also on an IT level. What information does my working station offer to the outside world? What is the common information each working station is offering? If I want to exchange it, update it, upgrade it, there's maybe coming one working station from another provider one day in the future. I put it in the production line. My IT systems need to be able to connect to this one module and gather the information. For this, they need to know what language and what information is described. And if I once think about it, you also come to some other problems. For example, we were talking about production modules. In fact, it means you need a modular infrastructure. If I'm talking about working stations, which I can take out of the production process or add into a production process, I need a connector from where to get my supply, like with your Hoover at home. Your Hoover works in your living room and in your sleeping room because you have a plug, you have infrastructure, energy plug is everywhere. And this approach you also need then in your smart factory. And if you have an overall idea, then all these tiny solutions suddenly make sense. And the big investment you have to take for the first use case, they will be lower and lower and lower in the future, because once you have these common interfaces, once you have this common infrastructure, everything else will be easier. And for example, things like the digital twin. If you once thought about what information is in my digital picture of the reality, then all other use cases become easier. Your IT systems can connect to that and get information from field devices. If you once have this energy plug and this infrastructure, then you have connectivity and changeability in the future. So one important thing, think about where do you want to go in this case. Especially, we are doing a lot of projects nowadays. 12 years ago, we started with this approach, and a lot of people were laughing about it. Nowadays, we are consulting a lot of companies in pharma, automotive, and food industries who have this question. They know, I need to invest into the future. In 2030, I need a new production line. My old production line, my old machines need to be replaced. Where should I go now? I know I need to invest in 2-3 years, but I would like to have an idea where should I stand in 2030. And that's one big thing where you have to think beforehand. So far about disruptive innovations in this case. Think on the long term, not on the short term. Yeah, as I mentioned, we realized this approach in our smart factory together with, in this case, for this production line, 19 of our 50 partners. In the first year, 2014, we had a small production line with modules to show that it's possible, feasible to have a high changeability. 1 year later, we extended our product and wanted to be more fancy, and in the latest moment, we noticed, okay, we need new quality gates. We need a weight and a better optical quality control. So it was a matter of short time. We had our standards in our partner network. We could give our partner the standards and say, okay, please build me this and deliver it. And 1 month later or 1.5 months later, they put the module, we connected it, it was booting up and instantly running. Another year later, we thought about, okay, we need more capacity, so we added some more modules. A robot, it was in the one case. So we increased the throughput time or increased the output with additional modules. So what we learned from this approach in 2014, over the years, we continuously developed this one further and further. We learned from this approach with modules and connected machines. We learned that in the future, you can do everything in much less engineering effort. You need less time, you need less effort for re-engineering. If you once thought about where do you want to go, took into account changeability, open interfaces, and modularization. Yeah, and where to go next? Some food for thoughts in this case. We started with smart products. The product is carrying its information about configuration and working tasks. I think this is already widespread, working with QR codes and RFID nowadays. Digital twin, a virtual picture of my physical entity, which is storing all information. There's a lot of work ongoing right now. And of course, cyber-physical systems, edge computing. The idea that, in fact, yeah, if I take out my mobile, the computing power of this mobile, 15 years ago, it was that big standing under my desk. 15 years ago, it cost 1,000 euros. Now I can get it for let's say 200 euros, a cheap Android smartphone. So we have a smaller technology, more powerful technology, and with this, and cheaper technology. And with this, we can do more business cases. We can realize more cases. Edge computing, the idea of attaching devices with sensors in my old machine, retrofitting it, to connect it to the outside world. Things in the future, we've worked on predictive maintenance. Also, one result we figured out without knowing beforehand that we one day want to do predictive maintenance. Real-time monitoring, I think this is obvious. If I connect everything and can gather information down to the field device, I can have a look in my ERP, MES, SCADA system, whatever, and look up what's my machine doing right now. And one step in the future, artificial intelligence. But in this case, of course, the question, is it useful? Not everything with artificial intelligence makes sense. Sometimes the easy approach is better, but there are cases where artificial intelligence works out. Yeah, almost the end. I talked a lot about connecting machines, and as I mentioned, Smart Factory is an open network, and that's what we figured out. It's not only connecting machines, we also heard yesterday, it's also connecting people, connecting companies, working together. We are working together with competitors and customers, technology providers, small and big companies, but they are all open-minded. And some weeks ago, when I was preparing the slides, there was a movie running, and somehow it caught my attention. There was one quote which somehow kept in my mind. It was, you see the power of communities. It was in a different context, but this made me thought, because in fact that was what happened here. We started 12 years ago with 7 small partners. Now we have 50 partners, and we are working together. We are open-minded. We don't fear to give information, to share information, because we know the other one is also sharing information with us. Yeah, and that's all from my side so far. Thank you very much. I hope I could give you some insights into a different domain. Yesterday we already heard it's about bringing together also different people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dennis. A very interesting look into smart factory concepts, modularization, sort of idea of a factory that is kind of without vendor and all the technology and connectivity that requires, and it's not by any means a big jump to see the impact that has on logistics. And these aren't concepts that are separate to the automotive industry either, as we clearly know. So thank you, Dennis, for sharing that. A quick reminder before I bring on our final presenter of the day, we do want you to vote in our own little election here, because we're going to do the polling at the end of the session. We have some sponsor questions on some trends. We have a few of our own questions. So just a quick reminder, as you can see there, how you do it. You use your badge number and your email address to log on. And we already have a question that's live that we put up this morning. Again, it's your chance to choose the Prime Minister, or who you think should be the Prime Minister of the UK. Do give us your voice. We'll reveal the answer at the end before we go on to other questions. So just a reminder to do that. But of course, we are not there just yet, because we have another great speaker. It's my pleasure to invite Veronica Suntergarath from T-Systems.
So good morning, everybody, and thank you for your introduction, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. For the first time, I'm assisting to that conference. So, just a second. We have heard already a lot in this conference and also in other events. The disruptive technology-driven trends that are mentioned are always the same. It's connectivity, autonomous driving, shared mobility, and electrification. And what we can observe that the connected car, if we compare these different technologies, the connected car is one of the most major ones in comparison, because we are using telematics, for example, in my company since 2003 with truck and trailer telematics, for example. So here you can see we speak a lot of new aspects in the connected car, like autonomous driving or something like this, which is still not so frequent in reality. But the connected car is quite legacy, I would say. So the challenges for automotive and logistics industries are very similar. Digitization means that you will be disrupted if you don't disrupt yourself. So the impact in automotive and logistics is even bigger than in other industries, because it can be opportunity of business of up to 350 billion euros in the automotive and logistics industries, which are the biggest industries if we compare it to others like medicine, electronics, manufacturing, and so on. So how will logistics benefit from automotive digitization? Because my hypothesis is that logistics could make much more of existing technology that we have already in place in the automotive industry. So it's more or less, maybe it's to be more conscious, to be more an expert, and to understand the possibilities of the different technologies. And then it can be, of course, used much more in near future for logistics. Because if I compare, because I know a little bit both industries, if I compare the spirit in the automotive industry and the logistics industry, and you are all, as well as me, in both industry in some way. So I must say logistics is very conservative, and automotive is a very fashionable, is a very high-tech industry, and they are very open-minded in comparison. So logistics really needs to make an effort to take advantage of all these challenges that have in part already been solved for automotive industry. So in future, it can be, also logistics can be much more efficient, more flexible, more transparent, and more secure. Logistics as mobility, they become parts of wider, broader ecosystems, because everything will be connected. Traffic infrastructure, the means of transportation, whatever they are, connected also with mobility and logistics needs. And all this must be in real time. It must be very user-centric, because we are getting accustomed, for example, in e-commerce, that the user, the end customer, wants to decide on everything: delivery times, delivery prices, environmentally friendly modes of transportation, and so on. So it will be all networked. It will be intermodal and dynamically priced. So one of the enabler of automation and digitization in logistics and automotive industry is the 5G telecommunication technology, which is right now still in preparation, but probably in 2020 we will have it in place, and it will be available for you, and it will bring, I think, big milestones done in what still some roadblockers that we still have today because of limits in the current technologies, also in telecommunication and internet. So the way was that we came from mobile phones, and then we had the smartphones, and as you maybe have heard, we will have smart things in everything. And people like Zuckerberg, they even have the theory that maybe the smartphone is not the last device that we need. Probably, in many cases, even the smartphone will be substituted by other smart devices, other smart things, or just functionalities which are integrated into everything. So what will we achieve with the 5G technology? So we will have much more broadness access everywhere. We will have a very high internet speed. We will have a larger data transportation capacity, which enables use cases like using the internet in the very high-speed trains. Probably in 10 years, using internet in the Hyperloop transportation also. We will have the possibility to get the information in real time out of all these sensor networks that will be installed everywhere. We will have extreme real-time communication possibilities in the case of natural disaster where we may be urgently needed. We will have reliable communications for safety services. So the 5G, I think it's like disruptive in internet and in telecommunications, and disruptive also in some way in our jobs and in our lives. Here we will have a look a little bit on how autonomous driving works, because 5G is also an enabler for autonomous driving. And if it's even possible, because the cars, at least some examples right now, like Tesla or like premium class cars from manufacturer here in Germany, they have all the technology installed and the sensors to drive autonomously. So it's just a question, maybe the infrastructure, the legislation, and so on, regulation. It must be developed further. But the car technology is ready for autonomous driving. The telecommunication technology, well, I think in some way autonomous driving will work even better if in 2020 or so we have the 5G already in place. Because now, for example, with the current 4G or 3G, we can manage some communication from car to car. We can manage communication. It will work even between car and infrastructure. But for example, if we need a situation that we want to have quick information coming from the back end, which might be real-time information about accidents, about extreme weather situations, and so on. So a very quick connection to the back end is essential. And this will be, well, we have it already in place also with the current technology, but it will be even with more capacity and with much more velocity in future. One very important technology that is already starting this year is the narrowband IoT technology. We can also see some examples here, which enables, for example, the cars to communicate directly to the city or road infrastructure, to traffic lights, to traffic signals, and so on. And this technology is stored already and can be used starting this year, because the telecommunication infrastructure has been prepared, and Telecom has launched this new technology for telecommunications in the Netherlands, in Germany, and where you have the T-Mobile companies in the Eastern European countries. There you can start to use this technology. I'll give you one example. For example, for parking in Hamburg, we will install 11,000 sensors on parking lots. I haven't brought one along. It looks like a plate, and you install it on the floor, and it can communicate to the network whether a parking lot is free or occupied. Then the people will get the information in their connected car or on their app, so they can be guided to a parking lot in large German cities. This is something that Deutsche Telekom is developing with the main big cities in Germany. And this is one of the very large use cases that we already find in kind of right now constructing proof of concept and so on in the field, because the technology was not ready 3 months ago. But now we are at the point, and I think it's interesting, very interesting for logistics, because, for example, you can use it in yard logistics, because sometimes you need to know where are free positions or so on the yard. Or you can very well use it in intralogistics, because this technology is much better than, for example, the beacon technology, which, you know, beacons need to connect to a smartphone, and the smartphone will transmit the information to the back end. No, this is, you don't need a smartphone. Directly from sensor to base station and to the back end. You can also, if you compare it to the RFID, where you need always, you have the tag, but you need the gates to read the tag. So this technology is much more independent, and I think it will be huge for intralogistics, because it doesn't have the same kind of limitations like you find in the beacon technology and in the RFID technology. What I wanted to explain a bit more, the other speakers mentioned it already, what is edge computing, or what is fog computing in the context here. With the 5G technology, we also speak of the mobile edge computing, because the interesting change in technology is that some of the intelligence and some of the algorithms will work directly from the base stations. So for some processes, you don't need to connect to the back end. It can be transmitted and retransmitted forward and backwards, for example, with the cars, from the base stations. So it's a kind of a decentralized intelligence, and it makes it even quicker, and it also helps to optimize the telecommunication, use of telecommunication infrastructure to the back end. Because if you can manage in a regional manner, you don't need to transport the information so far away to a back end or so in the cloud. If we consider this kind of situation of car-to-X communication in automated driving or heavily assisted driving, I think we can perfectly transfer this to situations in intralogistics. And maybe in some cases, this does already work like this. If these cars, for example, were forklifts, and in the warehouse situation, it's very similar. You have the intercross sections. You have people working also in the warehouse. So we can, the situations of this technology, what is illustrated in this case for a city situation, it is very similar to a situation in a warehouse. So for intralogistics, the transfer learning between the technologies, and so it must be much more intensive, I think, because so many technology features are already developed for example, in this field of autonomous driving outside and on smart city, which can be applied to intralogistics. Well, here again, in this real-time logistics network, of course, the information will be interconnected between everything, between social media, between different departments in your company that also want to know the stage of some logistic processes, marketing, product management, new business, and so on. It will become much more transparent for everybody. So I already explained to you a little bit about the advantages of the narrowband technology. It is interesting because, well, it is quite cheap also in comparison to other technologies. And as you can see, as I already explained, the potential for indoor use of this technology is tremendous. So if you want to know a bit more about that, we can talk at a one-to-one basis on that. Security was explained also by several of the speakers. It's an extremely important aspect, and it's also always high priority in our company, because it doesn't make sense to use something new and to exploit new possibilities in technology if it's not secure. And this is one of the key characteristics, I think, of Deutsche Telekom, that their standards in security and safety and quality is extremely high. So I'll give you some examples of where we already work in the connected car and connected mobility area. As a reference, for example, we are the ones who run the back end, Daimler vehicle back end. You have already now like 3.5 million cars online on the Daimler vehicle back end, which are the services that that come line fitted if you order your Mercedes with the online services in your private car. We have also developed together with Daimler an aftermarket solution, which is right now working for passenger cars as well, which will come also during this year, I think, to the van sector in Mercedes-Benz. And this is an OBD adapter which connects to your iPhone, and then the information will be sent to the back end. And you can, I will show it further, you get some useful hints about your car, where did I park my car, how much fuel is in my car, what is the battery status of the car, and so on. In some cases, we have already integration of car and home. In some products where you want to use some videos or some stuff while you are on the road. We deliver the Wi-Fi hotspot for BMW passenger cars. I think it's 30 or 50 countries worldwide where you can have up to 10 hotspots in your car. And this is, I think it's very interesting for business, for example, if you need to, you have a chauffeur, or in some occasions you share transportation. So two can be working with their Wi-Fi, always running in the car, and one is driving also. So it's interesting for families when the kids want to see the YouTube videos, to see films or so. And in US, for example, we have a solution, an aftermarket solution, which includes a hotspot in the dongle. I will show you also an example of these kinds of aftermarket OBD2 adapters, which are small pieces. And this can include you so much information about the car, but it can even include a hotspot, like in the example of T-Mobile US. Some of our logistics, telematics customers since, as I said, 2003, 2004, are MAN Telematics, Schmidt's Cargo Telematics, Trailer Telematics. We do all what is behind the Schmidt's Cargo Telematics. They use it as a white label, but even the new portal and everything was developed inside the Telekom group. So we are very involved since more than a decade in the logistics telematics. We are finishing a product in the United States for Continental with an electronic onboard recorder. And we have this since 2014, the Smart Hub Logistics project in Hamburg Port, which helps trucks to get some additional traffic information, routing information on their tablets, smartphones, or on their car telematics in order to get quicker through this bottleneck, which is the traffic in the Hamburg port geofence. We run the Toll Collect project together with Daimler, which is a toll collection for trucks and commercial transportation in Germany. We are able, for e-mobility, to install the loading stations with our technical capacity in the telecom, because we have thousands of technicians, and they make also installments for electric loading stations. One very interesting is the ROAMBE project for logistics. ROAMBE is an asset tracker. It is like a size of a book. You put it in your asset, which can be used, for example, in the automotive industry for outbound logistics. If you want to track in real time outbound logistics through this kind of asset tracking. So this is intermodal. This is pay per use. This is really an easy way to use and an economic way to use tracking features. And the technology is already right now in proof of concept in several of the large European OEMs in automotive sector. They are using it for outbound logistic real-time tracking, and as well for inbound logistic cases of some premium pieces or so, where you want really to monitor closely the transportation. Well, this is again about the example of the Mercedes Me, and the other example, like this aftermarket solution, you can plug it into any type of make or model, and it will be many of the users that you have in the command online, for example, you will have it, or different use cases, you have it enabled by this kind of OBD2 adapters. And yesterday in our conversations with some of you, I thought the future should be that this, in case the line-fitted cars are not coming with the connectivity, it could be in the production site, it could be put into the car already, and this can give us, at least at some events during transportation in outbound logistics, it can give us some information about location and about, for example, somebody has towed the car, or the car has been touched or so, or there was an incident with the car, we would get this information to this. So even for aftermarket logistics, this is very interesting. And we should have a further look really inside this to start to make proof of concept with this option. Okay, I explained already about the ROAMBE, which is asset tracking. It's a very small device, like a book. You put it in the car, and you can track the car during all the logistics process. So we saw everything will be connected, and the everything connected things will disrupt logistics, and logistics should really and seriously harvest on the possibilities and on the new technologies to make logistics much more flexible, transparent, user-friendly, and well, to be something so modern or so high-tech like autonomous driving. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. I think you covered so much in that presentation, from all the different types of connectivity that we're seeing across different sides of the automotive industry. And as you saw there, many aspects which are highly applicable to logistics, whether it's in-plant or tracking devices, or perhaps most importantly, the data. We can see so many uses of that on the aftermarket side. And in one of our breakout sessions, I'm sure we'll be discussing that next, specifically on aftermarket, and in fact here in this room on connected distribution for vehicles. So thank you, Veronica. Thank you to all of the panel. I am aware we've run a bit over time. I do apologize for that. We won't dally too long, but we did want everyone had a lot of interesting information to share. We'll give a little bit extra time in the coffee break, so you can catch up a bit on that. I don't want to exclude an opportunity if anybody does have a question for our panel. Again, I know we ran quite a bit over time, but if anybody does have a question, now would be the time. No, you're thinking at least about coffee, or maybe you're very anxious to see the result of the election, which we're obviously holding here. But maybe one quick question then from my side, just because Frank, we saw how Johnson Controls has changed its business model a bit, and if we look at the supply chain and what this connected technology is already starting to change the ecosystem a little bit in terms of what suppliers are doing, what they're building, and maybe even where the power lies. And I just wonder, how do you see that filtering down even into the supply chain management and logistics when a company like Johnson Controls isn't entirely necessarily automotive, or isn't necessarily building powertrains and seats and the kind of stuff that we like to move around and stuff? What do you think some of the implications might be?
Yeah, great question. Thanks. I believe it gives an opportunity for us. I mean, if I look into a lot of the opportunities around connecting products and devices, then also upstream and downstream, connecting that with the back end of the business, that will drive opportunities. I mean, you have spoken about preventive maintenance models. That's reality today already, and that gives opportunities in the supply chain for better planning. Lots of organizations are not only struggling with, logistics, struggle around sales and operation planning, which is a big topic, or integrated business planning in every company. But now we have to find new ways of the data we can extract from our products, and also the data we get from our customers, and integrating them into our planning systems. And by doing that, we will be in a position to run our business in a more efficient way. And that means then connecting that further with our logistics and transportation systems. You have spoken about that. There's opportunities for a lot of companies to work together. I mean, you've spoken about collaboration and all that. I've spoken in my presentation about that you cannot survive alone anymore. That's impossible. So you need to build really strong partnerships in an ecosystem. I hope that in the end, now we focusing pretty much like other companies on the front end of our business, on our customers, finding ways how to solve their problems in a more fast and efficient way. But now we have to actually look into further the opportunity which exists in a supply chain to make the supply chain more efficient. So there is opportunity. And obviously we as an organization has transformed our portfolio in a way of looking into capitalizing on those opportunities in a way of what does it mean. I'll give you another example in our battery business, where we currently going into through technology extracting data from the battery, so that you actually know when your battery is gonna die, and you know that before, so that you actually through connectivity get information, and you provide the information to customers in a way that, for example, the change of a battery can be scheduled in advance. So now that triggers an opportunity in a supply chain where you now can set up your systems in a way you can plan better, you can actually manufacture better, you can actually have an opportunity around inventory management and better cash flows. All those kind of things are becoming a reality. So now obviously, are we going to solve everything overnight? Most probably not, but in bits and pieces, we see that today already, and over time, I guess, it creates an opportunity for all of us.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I think that's a interesting point on which we'll sort of end that part of the panel discussion here. I think we have a panel at the end of the day where I believe Carlos and Frank are joining us as well. So we'll have more chance to kind of to probe deeper into that. Mention the opportunities there. Veronica quoted a number, 350 billion in the automotive and logistics industry that this disruption might mean. So obviously there's risk, but there's a lot of opportunity there as well. So thank you to our panel for all their time. Again, apologies that we're running over. We'll give you a little extra time for coffee, but we do want to take a moment whilst we have you here, while you had logged in, to take the pulse and ask you some questions We have some questions from some of our sponsors as well, looking at a few trends. So we'll take a few minutes to do that. Just a reminder again, if you haven't already, the way you log into the system is through the email address, what you see, sorry, the web address that you see up there. You would have also had an email with a link. And you use your email address as the login and the delegate number, which is printed on your badge, as the password. And once you're in there, you'll see the vote, or you'll see the voting tab. Just a quick reminder for our live audience watching outside the room, there's a slight delay in between the video and actual broadcast, in real time. So the question is what you want to see. The question, that will come up first. So follow the question that you see and not my voice. So again, hopefully everyone has had a chance to log in who wants to participate, and then we can now move on to the voting itself. So just a quick reminder again of what our first question is that some of you have already voted on. With the UK election that's happening now, this is your chance to nominate who you think the best place Prime Minister will be. Theresa May, Jeremy Corbyn, someone from the Trump family, or obviously the best choices you have here, Louis Yakumi or myself. So who should be the Prime Minister of the UK come tomorrow morning? If you haven't voted, please vote now. And yeah, it's a landslide victory. A landslide. It looks like people rate me in the same category as Donald Trump. That tells me something about my own popularity. So if this room would have it, Louis would be sitting in the negotiating table over Brexit. I think that means Arsene Wenger is likely to become the president of Europe, and we might just get a chance to stay in the EU, barring a few Cyprus negotiations as well. Okay, thank you for the vote on that. Now we'll move on to some of the real questions. So this is from our global sponsor, CDC Beijing Chengdu. So how likely are you to utilize the Europe-China rail connection for your operations in the coming years? So whether you have a service on there or you might put a product on it yourself, how likely are you to use that rail link between Asia and Europe? Are you very likely, somewhat likely, undecided, somewhat unlikely, or very unlikely? Please vote now. %, somewhat likely, with almost 30% very unlikely, but that's a pretty high percentage actually, with 14% very likely. So more than 50% are somewhat or very likely. Which is quite interesting. It just goes to show how important that rail link is becoming. Next question is from another sponsor, Volga Depner. So what is the most important or critical aspect you look for in a logistics service provider? Is it reliability? Is it cost savings? Is it their geographical footprint? Is it their multimodal offering or capabilities? Or is it something else? 61% reliability. It's good to actually see that that's well above cost savings, with some of the others coming quite down below. So we mostly want reliability, which obviously would end up saving you more money. Next question is from our global sponsor, CHEP. What factors contribute to the total cost of ownership of packaging? Container maintenance, so tracking losses, repairs, and washing. Transportation, so the freight underutilization and long-haul returns. Slightly out of order, I think probably CapEx for non-production material, inability to flex production needs, or all of the above. I assume the all of the above wasn't just referring to the container management and transportation bit. Oh, you went for the easy answer on that one. For all of the above. So it's really easy then. next question is from our gold sponsor, UECC, and is, are you concerned about the future supply of transportation capacity in the European short sea market? We're talking here quite specifically, I imagine, on the vehicle logistics side, so short sea, ro-ro, and car carrying capacity. Yes or no? %62 say no. So perhaps people feel that that's relatively in line. Of course, it's not so precise. If you're a packaging provider, it's true, you might not care at all what's going on with capacity there. But in general, we think most people don't think there's a big issue there. So a few other questions here, just looking at some of your sentiment here. So looking a little bit at the economy. Over the next year in Europe, what impact do you think that will have on your supply chain and logistics capacity? Is it going to invest more and expand your capacity? Invest some and slightly increase your capacity? Little to no investment, so stable situation, or you're looking to make cuts to investment and capacity? So what is some of your outlook over the next year? So reasonably positive there, actually quite positive if you take it together. Some investment with stable or slightly higher, 26% with higher. So most people looking to expand their business over the next year, just expand their capacities. Next question. Okay, coming back to Brexit a little bit. What would the impact of a hard Brexit, including the introduction of tariffs and customs clearance, what would it do to your company? In the UK, would you likely halt investment and shift some or most of the services or footprint that you have in the UK to Europe or somewhere else, or to the continent or somewhere else? Would you halt or reduce investments but probably maintain what you're currently doing in the UK, so current footprints or service levels? Reduce investments, lower, still invest, but perhaps lower than you were originally planning, and increase somewhat your footprint in the UK? Or increase your investment and services compared to what you're doing now, so a substantial increase. So what impact do you see as a hard Brexit for your company? So almost 40% probably reducing investments, but keeping most of what they're doing. Although it's a quarter of you are increasing. So as usual with Brexit, it's never quite so straightforward, but it's quite positive, at least, since this seems to be increasingly one of the more likely outcomes. It doesn't seem like people here are looking to entirely abandon our glorious island. Next question. So how long do you think it will take autonomous vehicles to make up a quarter of new car sales and production? In the next 5 years, let's say in the next 6 to 10 years, in the next 11 to 15 years, in the next 16 to 20 years, or more than 20 years? Vote now. So 6 to 10 years for about a third of you. Good majority over the next 15. We're going to compare this. We did the same question in a recent conference in the US, so we'll make sure we compare. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I think you see it coming a little bit faster than the US, if my memory serves me correctly. So in the next 10 years, a good amount of you see a high share of autonomous vehicles. Maybe we'll do one or two more questions. Okay, the biggest challenge that my company will face in automotive logistics over the next year. Market volatility, pressure on costs or rates, fallout from political or regulatory changes, perhaps Brexit, perhaps other things, securing enough logistics capacity to meet demand, implementing new technology, or reducing emissions or pollution. What's the biggest challenge? And we'll make this the last question. So perhaps you're influenced by our panel, because this is the message that would have come up. At 34%, implementing new technologies in IT systems is the biggest challenge, followed, perhaps not surprisingly, pretty closely by costs. But I'm glad to see that it wasn't costs that won the day, or necessarily market volatility and fallout. It's pretty positive. People are looking to engage in the transformation that we've been talking about in this conference. We had some other questions, but I realize we're running quite late, so I don't want to keep you here for so long. What we will do, though, is have some questions come up about the session, just to get your opinion, as we've been doing. So if you have please do vote on the session and how you think. And maybe as you're doing that, I want to just announce two things. There was a winner at the casino last night. If you were there, you know we had a casino, and the winner was Bulin Ileri from AGCO. It's not enough that he's the Cristiano Ronaldo of logistics and won the BVL and the European Champions. Now also won the casino prize. So Bulin, if you have a chance to pick up your more of the Queen's biscuits at the registration desk after this session. So congratulations. And also, a gentleman apparently lost his glasses last night at the gala dinner, and we have retrieved those by taxi, and they're also at the registration desk. Presumably, this person cannot see me as I'm saying this, but I'm hoping that the message is getting across one way or another. I want to thank you all. Again, to our presenters again, thank you for your voting. Thank you for your engagement with us. Enjoy some coffee. We'll start again at 11:15. Again, we'll be in here with finished vehicle logistics and in the other room looking at aftermarket service parts. Thank you.